didn't know that then. He comes to look at the house. He's not interested in the house. He sees the slag pile. He knows that there's a slag pile. There had to be a furnace next to it. He hooks Louise Hawks up with the American Iron and Steel Institute, which is a trade organization for the iron and steel industry based in New York City. This is right after the Second World War. You can imagine how big the American iron and steel industry is. It's as big as the iron and steel industry of the entire rest of the world put together. They pony up $2.5 million in 1940s money. That's like $26 million that do all the archaeology and restoration work here. There's no way the Park Service could afford to do that. But that's really the only connection between the ironworks and this house. But it's still a really neat house, so let's go talk about the house.
Oh, we hung a sign on the thing saying...
Somebody break your leg?
We're trying to have a new one. No.
Because you didn't pay the bills? The Russian mafia came and they, BOOM! Did they shoot you or something? Just kidding.
I mean, that wasn't that funny.
Sorry. My jokes are sometimes not funny, but like those things happen. Did happen, you know. I know some people.
It's not broken.
Oh, not broken?
No,
Oh.
it's, the bone is irritated.
Oh, irritate. Okay, so it's not like not that serious. I thought you know. I thought somebody came with a baseball bat and.
No.
No.
No. Honestly, I have friends who have mental health
Oh,
problems.
I see.
And you know they don't deal with it in a very good way.
And what happened? So what happened to the leg?
I fell like sideways.
Oh, I see.
You know?
Accident.
Yeah. So honestly, hopefully,
You'll be fine.
my friends will get the help. that
Before
they need.
the wedding, you'll be fine.
The oldest continuously operating farm in America. Been there since 1636. It is still an operating produce and dairy farm. It's 1,000 acres. They own 1,000 acres in Ipswich. They inherit 600 acres here in Saugus, and they build this very large farmhouse. It is typical of English architecture from that period because it's built by recent immigrants. They built what they know. It's especially typical of the architecture from the southeast part of England, what's called East Anglia. East Anglia is the counties of Norfolk, Suffolk, and Essex. A lot of the Puritans who settled here were from East Anglia, which is why they named the counties here Norfolk, Suffolk, and Essex. You're in Essex County right now. So, typical features of this style of English architecture are door in the middle on the ground floor, overhangs and painted decorations on the second floor, facade gables, there's gable and facing us there are called facade gables, steeply pitched roof, finial decorations on the peak, chimney stack in the middle, all typical of English architecture. These are some surviving 17th century houses in Essex, England. You can see the family resemblance. They built what they know. What's distinctly American about it is all the wood. In post and beam construction like this, they fill in between the posts with what they call nogging or infilling. And they use whatever material comes to hand. In this particular case, they used low fire brick. Those walls are all full of bricks. And they'd use bricks in England too, but in England they leave the bricks exposed and do decorative patterns. Or more commonly, they did wattle and daub and plaster over, and that's what we call it Tudor or half timber look at the white plaster or the dark heat. One of the reasons they're doing this in England is they're running out of wood. They've clear cut the country. This is a 600-acre farm. They got boatloads of wood, so they clabbered beside the building. The same thing applies to the steeply pitched roof. The reason the roofs are steeply pitched in England is they thatch them, and you need a steep pitch on a thatched roof. Here they cedar shingle it. So it's the shape of an English house, but the fact that it's covered completely in wood is typically American. One of the things I find fascinating are the facade gables, those gable ends facing us. They are purely decorative. They're extremely popular in the 17th century. They're extremely unpopular in the 18th century. You look at them and you think they increase the floor space in the attic and the light in the attic. And the reality is they do neither. They're built on top of the rafters so you can't go out in them. And in most 17th century houses, they're built on top of the roof boarding, so they don't even let any light in. In this climate, they cause ice dams. You may notice we've got copper flashing up there. They didn't do copper flashing. They simply ripped all the facade gables off all the houses. There are no surviving 17th century houses with original facade gables, with one exception. There's one house that has one original facade gable. Anybody have a guess what house that is?
House of the Seven Gables.
Yeah, it's the Turner Ingersoll house in Salem. But it's not one of the 7 gables. Those were put on in the 1909 restoration to match the Hawthorne story. It's in the attic. That house was added to twice in the 17th century. During one of the additions, they built the addition over the facade gable. So the only way you can see the original facade gable is go on the tour up the back stairs, the attic. Now I mentioned the Boardman house, the other 17th century house in Saugus. The Boardman house does not currently have facade gables, but the architectural evidence is that it did. There is no architectural evidence that this house had facade gables. Wall isn't just nutting, just like them and stuck them on. So of the two 17th century houses in Saugus, the one that should have facade gables doesn't, and the one that shouldn't does. Okay, we're ready to go inside. Who wants to be in the first batch? You guys wanna?
Yeah, sure.
And then we'll be 10 minutes and then we can cycle you guys through.
Okay, let's go.
What is that small structure here?
That's where a garden hose goes.
Oh,
There's a faucet.
Hey, Mr. Enthusiasm. Slowly.
Okay. So the only architectural evidence that Wallace Nunning had that there was a porch in the house was a stone foundation. So this is all a speculative reconstruction. And you can tell if you look at the floorboards, you can see the circular saw marks on them. This is all modern dimensional lumber. The original house starts over there. Wallace Nunning used this as a showroom for his furniture and photography business. This is the picture he took in this room. So there's his reproduction colonial furniture, there's his model and colonial costume popping out of the cellar door, there's his braided rugs. His wife loved braided rugs, they were in all those pictures. They didn't have braided rugs in the 17th century, but Wallace Nunning didn't care. If you stand on that side of this beam, there's something neat I want to show you about it.
here.
See what looks like a chamfered edge, this diagonal edge here?
Yeah.
It's not a chamfered edge. It's the bark edge of the tree. When they built these houses in the 17th century, they would fell oak trees. The framing is all white oak. They would fell oak trees, and they'd carve the timbers on the ground. They put the mortises and tendons and peg holes in them. They mark them with Roman numerals to indicate the assembly sequence. Take them to the construction site and piece them together like a giant jigsaw puzzle. Because they knew they wanted a chamfered edge here, they saved themselves the trouble of planing it by just cutting to the bark edge of the tree.
I see
That's another lucky for us.
there are many insect marks here. Is the wood treated to prevent like insects
Pesticide.
from like a?
No,
yeah.
it hasn't been
Okay.
treated.
So it's funny because this wood, you can't even like get it anymore. Like this.
Oh yeah.
We did demo in a building in the seaport, like one of the old mill buildings, and they had a bunch of these beams, but a little newer, but you can't get that stuff anymore. Real expensive too. Probably weighs a couple, 400 or 500 pounds.
Oh yeah, easily.
They're heavy. Yeah.
So in the 1970s, we drilled holes in the beams. And we did dendrochronology dating. And that's where you compare the growth patterns of rings of pieces of wood. You know the age to pieces of wood. You don't know the age. And because of what they did here, we have the last growth ring. We know this tree was alive in 1687. So that's how we date the house to the Appleton occupation. Now another thing you can see here are the nail holes in the floor joists. When Wallace Nunning bought the, stop, turn off, there we go. When Wallace Nunning bought the house, it had lath and plaster ceilings. And he correctly deduced that those were Victorian and he ripped them out. But he went one step too far. He found whitewash under that and he thought that was Victorian and he stripped that too. We now know from testing the whitewash in the places he didn't do, like the cupboards and closets, the whitewash was original to the house. In Wallace Nunning's day, they thought Puritans were all brown and gray and boring. We now know that's not true. They like bright colors, they like decorations, they decorated everything. A couple of years ago, Heritage Plantation down in Cape Cod did a recreation of a Puritan parlor from this period. And this is what it looked like.
Oh wow.
So see the white ceiling? See the green beams? We found traces of green paint on these beams. See the bright floor, walls, nothing dark stain on the floor. See the furniture is all decorated. They decorated everything. If you go to our museum, there are some tools that they excavated from the ironworks here. There's a hammerhead with inside decoration. They even decorated their tools. They were not brown, gray, and boring. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any artifacts from the Appleton occupation. So what we've done is we set up each room to tell a different story. We're going to start in the hall here. Watch your head on the doorway. It's the lowest doorway in the house. I hit my head on it all the time.
What are those tools?
We'll come back and talk
Oh, okay,
about
okay. How long have you been associated with the society? How long have you been working here?
11 years.
11 years? But you said something about the 70s?
Oh, well, that's when they did the dendrochronology.
Oh, okay. So you were not working
No.
here. Okay.
That's long before my time. So when Wallace Nutting bought the house, all the fireplaces had been plastered over and converted to wood stoves. And he took the wood stoves out, knocked the plaster down, and discovered this gigantic fireplace. So he named the house Broadhearth. This is where they would have done the cooking. They could have actually had multiple fires going on here at the same time. What we've done with this room is we set it up to show how post and beam houses of the period are constructed. So that's a model of the Gedney house in Salem. It's not a model of this house, but the Gedney house was framed the same way as this. And this is a model of one of the joints in this house. This is this joint here. It's a little confusing the way they did the model because they rotated it 180 degrees. So this post is on the outside of the house. There are 6 timbers joined together here. They did this without blueprints. They would apprentice as boys, frequently between the ages of 10 and 12, and they learn how to carve all the stuff on the ground and mark it with Roman numerals. If I could take you up to the attic, which unfortunately I can't, you can still see the Roman numerals on the principal rafters. They go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that tells us 2 things about the house. It tells us the house was assembled from that end to this end, but it also tells us it was originally this size because we've got all those numbers in consecutive sequence. These are house carpenter's tools. These are the kind of tools they would have used to build a house like this. These are all reproductions with one exception. This is an original saw blade from the archaeology here. There was a blacksmith named Joseph Jenks who rented space on the ironworks. He was not an employee of the ironworks. He was an independent tradesman who specialized in making agricultural tools, especially saw blades for water-powered sawmills. In the 17th century, there's 2 ways to make boards. You can have a pit saw. You have a hole in the ground, the man gets in the hole, you put the timber across the top, and another man stands up top. And they've got a 2-man saw. So the lucky guy's up top going like this. The unlucky guy's in the hole in the ground going like that. If you use a pit saw, you get straight saw marks, not like the curved ones I showed you on the porch. But they're not perfectly parallel because people aren't perfect machines. If you use a water-powered saw, you get straight saw marks that are perfectly parallel. Like, for example, those guys. Can you see those?
Oh yeah.
All straight and parallel. These floorboards were all cut in a water-powered sawmill in the 17th century. They made what were called sash mills. They'd have a big wooden frame and they'd gang big saw blades, like 20 saw blades together. And a water wheel would make the sash go up and down, and then they just feed whole logs into it. Joseph Jenks received the first industrial patent issued in North America for an improved process for making saw blades for water-powered sawmill. Okay, we're going to go across. Oh, that's the bell, by the way. People were asking about that frame over the door, that big U-shaped thing. It's for that bell.
Makes sense.
We take it off in the winter time. We just haven't put it back yet. Oh, nice. So watch your head on the doorways. So they would have called this the parlor, and it would have been the main entertaining space in the house. Because we don't have any Appleton artifacts What we did was we set it up to represent a typical English provincial dining room. So typical features are a big table in the middle of the room, big chair for the head of the household to sit in, salt cellar to mark the head end of the table, benches all around for everybody else to sit in. The press board, that cupboard there, is a copy of an original in the collection of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. They have a press board that they know was made in Essex County in the 1680s, so we had an exact copy made. I love it because once again it shows the Puritan love of decoration. You know, it's all natural contrasting wood. So this room would have had a white ceiling, the beams would have been green, the floor would have been bright, it would have been much brighter. The plate in the back of the fireplace is called a fireback. There are 7 surviving firebacks that were made at the Saugus Iron Works that we know of. We have 2 in our collection. One has a hole in it and it's in a glass case in the museum. That one's in mint condition, so we mounted it in the fireplace. It's got the date cast right into it, 1655. So it's actually 30 years older than the house. Any questions?
Did they use cuckoo clocks back then?
It's not a cuckoo clock.
No?
No.
It looks similar.
It's kind of interesting. That is actually an 18th century clock, and it has no minute hand. They didn't really care about small divisions of time, but it's also got an interesting linguistic thing. They took an hour and they divided it into 60 pieces, and they called those the first minute division, where we get minute.
Oh.
And then they took the minute and they divided it into 60 pieces, and they called that the second minute division, which is why we call them second.
Who did the woodwork? Like that right there, who made that? Is that modern made, just to replicate?
Yeah. I don't know who actually made that.
It's beautiful, yeah. It's great work.
So there's one last thing I want to show you back on the porch.
We can go upstairs?
No, I'm afraid the upstairs is closed.
Okay.
We've had some cracks up here. That's a crack monitoring system.
Oh,
so we're
I see.
keeping people off the stairs for the time being.
May I go very, very quick, just to record it and come back in a second? Very quick.
No.
No, thank you. And
So hang on a second.
yeah.
So remember I mentioned a chicken coop mashed with a brewery that was a blacksmith shop?
Yeah.
This is the brewery in Newburyport before they disassembled and brought it down and mashed it around the chicken coop. And this is Edward Guy, the blacksmith, in his chicken coop brewery blacksmith shop masher. He was a brilliant iron worker, very much in demand in the 1920s and 1930s. He was internationally known. He did work for the Vatican, for example. He had something of a falling out with Wallace Nutting. When he was hired, Wallace Nutting promised to put his kids through college, and then goes out of business. And Edward Guy was kind of sore about it. This is his revenge. Wallace Nutting published over 20 books on colonial antiques. This is a page from a book called The Pilgrim's Century that purports to show colonial pipe tongs. According to Wallace Nutting, in the colonial period, if you wanted to light your pipe, you had a little pair of metal tongs and you take the coal out of the fireplace. In 1922, Edward Guy saw that picture and wrote a nasty letter to the publisher saying those are not colonial pipe tongs, those are pipe tongs I designed and I made. Here's one of them right here. And so the next edition of that book came out without that picture. He was here till 1951. When they created the private museum, they evicted him. He was kind of sore about that. But his son, who was also named Edward Guy, but everybody called the son Les because his middle name was Leslie to distinguish him from his father. Les Guy was also a brilliant ironworker. Les Guy made that lock.
Wow.
That shows you what he was capable
Looks
of.
amazing.
Les Guy had a very good relationship with the National Park Service, and in the 1980s he donated his father's sample boards to us. We have 4 of these big wooden travel cases full of examples of his ironwork. Unfortunately, we don't have a place to display them. So we got these 2 little displays here, but our main display of his work is this house. He did all the hardware for this house. He did the strap hinges, he did the latches, he did the hooks and eyes that are on all the windows. He did the strap hinges here, he did the latch here. He made this combination door knocker latch opener. He hand forged all these nails. There are 160 nails in this door. I counted them myself. This door is amazing. The paneling goes vertical on the outside of the door and horizontal on the inside, and all the nails are through nailed and punched over.
So what's the point of having the nails in the door?
Just decorative.
Decoration.
Decoration only? Okay.
Yeah. That's a decorative style called diaper.
That's nice.
It's actually a medieval fashion.
Yeah.
It's sort of a conservative thing to show up in a house in the 17th century.
Love it. Yeah.
So we've had to replace a few bits and pieces over the years, but most of the hardware in the house is Edward and Les Guy's handiwork. The best choice.
No, it's awesome.
Well, enjoy the rest of your visit.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Thank you, boss.
Great information.
Yeah.
You're the mine of knowledge.
Everybody, you want to go walk over here?
Ready to go?